Hey folks, and welcome back to another one of our tested behind the scenes production looks. This here is a motorized slider by Kessler. This is a whole Kessler rig that I put together and that they've loaned to us for a couple months. And this for us is kind of an update to sliders and motorized sliders. In the past, you may have seen us review like the Red Rock one-man crew slider, and we've also checked out manual sliders like the Liebeck Alex here. So we have dabbled into motorized sliders before, but they're not really part of our normal tested production workflow. And back when we were at Weta in January, we were actually doing some shoots on products there, and they had essentially this Kessler Second Shooter rig set up, and we got to use it for some product stuff. So seeing it there, and our producer up in San Francisco, Gunther, has a Rhino slider that we've been using, and just using that a little bit, I wanted to just jump back into the sliders and just check them out, see what we can use them for, and see if they can be utilized in further productions for tested or for other things. So the setup I have here is the Kessler Second Shooter. That is this mechanism here that through cables allows you to control and plan all sorts of different types of motorized movements. It is set on this Kessler Stealth slider. This is about a 35-inch slider that I also have added these legs, these all-terrain legs, to give it stability and a little bit of height adjustment. And then I got a couple of batteries, the controller for the Second Shooter Plus, and then of course I got my GH5 rig here. I believe this is GH5S. With a follow focus. Now you can use this slider in a manual mode. I'm just using the controls here to move the slider. It can do pan, tilt up and down. It's quite loud right now, but you can actually turn on a quiet mode if you're doing audio. For here, I'm just set to 100% speed on manual mode. You don't usually use manual mode. This thing is really designed for setting up like keyframes and shots. So let me show you kind of how the program mode works on this. So for program mode, you have two different options. You have 2 keyframes and 3 keyframes. Those are pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to go into 3 keyframes, and it'll ask me to set the first keyframe. So I'm going to adjust the slider to where I want it to be using the arrows on the control pad here. I'll pan left and up into this light that I have. And I will go ahead and hit enter to set my first keyframe. Take it to the next keyframe that I want, and it'll be towards the camera filming me. And I will set the second keyframe there. And then to finish off the shot, I will just slide left and pan out and up. This is a boring shot, but for this example, this is fine. So once you hit enter and set that third keyframe, now you get a few options. Loop and scrub, so I can just have it loop this entire 3 keyframe sequence. I can just run once if I kind of want to land on this shot and I kind of have it roll a little longer than I would want it to loop again. Or like time lapse, I want it to go really slow and kind of take your time. So these sliders are often kind of used for motorized time lapse shots. So you want to have your camera kind of move, across the stars over a long period of time as those stars are flying through the sky. I'm in the Los Angeles area. There's not a whole lot. I have to go out to get stars. We haven't had a whole lot of star filming opportunities, but a lot of people use this camera, this setup or motorized sliders in general for those time lapse shots. And then stop motion, where you have a little more granular control over how you want to move the camera with your camera functions. Those options kind of open up as you add more elements to this Kessler slider. But for 90% of the time, this is the mode I'm using. I'm using the 3 keyframes real time, or for like build videos, we've done some time lapse shots as Adam's building in his shot. So let's run the sequence. I'm going to run this once, and now you get the options of time. So I can have this run over a course of 25 seconds with a ramp speed of about 30%. So it'll ramp up. You can adjust both of those how you want. Let's say I want this shot to run pretty quickly. So let's say like 12 seconds. And then go ahead and run it. The camera will get back into Mark 1, which was keyframe 1. And the program here will let me know how long into the run sequence it is. So it's counting down 7, 6, and it finishes out the sequence. This controller is actually, it's kind of charming in how simple it is to use. It's very just kind of old school buttons and doesn't overcomplicate things with its controls. So there are many different options and sizes you can get. Like I said, this is the stealth slider attached to the Second Shooter, about 35 inches of usable space. And this was all kind of on recommendation by my friend Scott, who was the director of photography on Mythbusters. And if you've seen the last couple seasons of that show, you would have seen a lot of more kind of motorized time-lapse shots with graphic overlays, which is one of the benefits of actually having a motorized slider for those kinds of shots, is that you get a constant movement that you can track in graphics a little bit more easily than you would with a shot that was manually slid. Because you have that constant speed, you can put graphics in there and know exactly that all the movements across the frames are going to be pretty similar. But he recommended the slider for me. He actually used the CineDrive system by Kessler, I think, for those shots. But post Mythbusters, this is the system that he got that he uses now on tons of other shows that are in similar vein. And this is another look that you've probably seen with the second shooter. During these interviews, you have your main A cam kind of looking at the subject, and then you have your B cam set up on a slider, kind of doing a nice little back and forth, kind of parallax motion, just to add a little bit of cinematic dynamic movements to your shot. It just makes it a little bit more visually interesting. And it's really easy to do with a small crew. You could have one person having the stationary cam getting audio, managing the audio, and just keeping focus, making sure that the slider is doing everything okay, and so you can get away with these nice shots for one-man crews. If we did more kind of slower meditative interviews, like sit-down interviews, we would probably be doing a lot more of this kind of stuff because our crew is usually so small, and because having that nice slider movement and giving some background, some foreground motion, it's just a very nice look to have. And probably one of the more popular uses for motorized sliders that can run on this continuous looping motion that you set a certain time for. For me, this rig is kind of a blessing and a curse. I love the size of it. This is bigger than my manual slider, and my manual slider is just a little bit smaller, and it's always just feels a little too small. This, I have a lot of room to work with. But I travel a lot, and this is a little bit tougher to travel with. I'm on planes quite a bit, and to pack this thing up and bring it on or check it in is just a little bit trickier than some of our other stuff. So I think if I was to buy into this line, I'd probably do the smaller dolly systems that I can create a backpack version of it for. And then one other thing I've been using it quite a bit for was on narrative short film stuff. And I can't show you too much footage of that because it's all kind of closed off through festival stuff. But I essentially have been able to, on small crews where it's just myself, no other AC or no focus puller, I have been able to set up dolly in shots or dolly out shots and then let the camera do all the work for me, and then basically just pull focus myself using this follow focus. So I'll get this whip here and just attach the whip to the follow focus, and then I can, as I'm dollying in towards the subject, I can pull focus myself without any interference to the camera system itself. And for that, it's actually quite good because I can set up a look that I like. I can show the director who can, approve the look or have a look that they like, and then we can do multiple takes and know that we'll have the same exact look every single take. So for that stuff, it's kind of nice. And especially for the smaller crew stuff, it's really nice because I don't need to rely on somebody else. I can kind of do both things myself and kind of, let the machine take my job as a camera operator while I just do the focus, which is kind of neat. So there you go. That's just a little brief update into our slider tests here. Like I said, we don't use a whole lot of these on our tested productions, but I think spending more time with it, getting a little more familiar with the different types of systems out there, I think it'll kind of open us up to using these more on our tested shoots and figure out where they kind of make sense. This Kessler one, it's a bit pricey. This whole rig, I think you're getting near $4,000 to $5,000. So every element itself here has a kind of different price range. You can kind of customize your own setup here and, that fits your budget. A couple little nitpicks. I mean, this cable system's a little clunky. Everything is kind of through these Ethernet cables. You have a cable going into the second shooter for pan, for tilt. You have a cable going in for the slider. So you have these three cables kind of hanging out. It'd be nice if it was, I don't know if wireless is an option or some kind of just single cable system, but I've wrapped them up in these little things and it's helped. And there are a few little clunky design elements that I'm not a huge fan of, but all in all, I mean, the Kessler brand is kind of top of the line for this stuff. They are known to make sturdy, high quality gear, sliders, jibs, cranes, dollies. And I think if you were to do a whole lot of product shooting or narrative stuff where you need some cinematic movements on small crews, I think this will definitely pay off in the long run. Or if you're just kind of a filmmaker who's looking to make a few spec stuff, make some spec commercials, some spec pieces, I think renting this to get those movements down, to get all the shots you need, just to kind of make your reel a little more cinematic, a little more visually stimulating, is a good option. So again, that's the Kessler Second Shooter with the Kessler Stealth Slider. Check out the website if you're interested in this stuff, and you can kind of price out your own versions. But that's about it for our motorized slider video. Let me know what you guys think of these videos, if you're interested in any other gear that I can check out, or if this is kind of going too deep into the sausage factory for you guys. But you know, that's just another kind of look into our tested production process. Until then, I will slide you guys later.